Good morning. I'm Mark Allen with Gaper.io, and I'm here today with David Lynch, the CEO of Klir. Good morning, or afternoon in your case, right, David?
Good morning, good afternoon, and good night, wherever you're hearing from.
That's a famous saying from a Jim Carrey movie.
Yeah,
I forget the name of it.
Truman Show. I just watched it this week, so I'm saying it the whole time.
The Truman Show. So can you share a brief background of yourself and your work experience?
Yeah, so I've actually listened to a good few of your podcasts, really enjoyed them, and there's such a breadth of experience, particularly in the tech scene, but I think I might be your first person from water. So I'll give you a little bit of background on that, and there's the old joke of how does someone end up with software and water? Surely the two of them don't mix. But my background, I started off as a consultant, so I worked for Accenture, and then later as an independent consultant, basically advising governments and utilities and municipalities all around the world and managing water more effectively with software. So as I say, I'm a recovering consultant. I'm about 6 years clean. And I took this experience. It's fairly common, or what needs to be done in terms of making water better and managing water. Like what needs to be done is pretty common. So basically, we built a SaaS solution off that. So that's where it brought me to, and I'm here today with just running Klir.
Oh, very nice. So what has been your experience with remote employment, both as an employee and an employer?
Yeah, so I was thinking about this, and I think it's a topic that's, I suppose, on the tip of everyone's tongue at the moment. But I feel I've been doing sort of remote work probably before it was cool. So back in 2011, I was doing consultancy work for the Environmental Protection Agency, and I was working at home 4 days a week. And so I had that early on experience, and this was like using the old Cisco WebEx softwares and VPNs and trying to get into remote desktoping to get files. So it was very early stage. And in Klir we're 100% remote. And I think all of this, not just in Klir but in EPA, points towards a bigger industry trend, and that the future is remote work. And we need software to support this collaboration, no doubt. And I think it's important to say that it's not just from lockdown. It's not just since March or February, but it has been coming for over a decade. And I think when it comes to tech, we have a higher tolerance for adopting technology and new ways of working, and a higher tolerance of failure. But at the opposite end of the spectrum, there actually has been a revolution of water utilities and governmental agencies, and that's been coming, but it just has tipped over the edge in the last 3 months. This traditional industry, and you can't really get more traditional than water, is welcoming remote work with open arms and recognizing it's the future. And it's not just fiscally and operationally driven, but it's a major component of staff happiness and contentment. So at a basic level, there's one customer I'm talking to, or one of our customers, and they're saying they have a commercial footprint that spends $6 million in commercial real estate for administrative staff. So like they're saying, this doesn't align to our corporate mission. We're here to make water better, and it's spending $6 million on office space. Is that making sense? Can I better be deployed to reach these objectives? And I think they are addressing those questions front and center now. And also, the staff and the team have tasted the sweet nectar of remote work, and they do want it to form a part of their future.
So you work for the EPA. Was that in Washington?
It was actually the European EPA. Oh. So it was in Ireland, and then the European Commission. So they all have the same name, so they should really have a letter after it to say where they're from.
So it'd be the EU EPA, right?
Exactly, yeah.
So what do you think is the future of remote employment, and what do you think could be done differently to make it more effective?
So I think the first point is that the future of remote work is here. So I think we just need to have this acceptance and maybe take a deep breath that it is here. And the one point I suppose I'd like to get across, that if government agencies that are in high risk categories, water utilities are high risk, high secure facilities and operations. It's not simple what they do. And if they're talking about remote work, then it means if you're in any other aspect of your business and not doing it, I think you need to have a big look internally. And it goes back to my point earlier on software. Software is the tool that will enable effective remote work. So like I think if you look at the way software was built before, spending $500,000 or $1 million or $2 million for a consultant organization to build or customize process management software, it's so antiquated. I think it worked when we were all in the office and you were just like formalizing processes that were there. And it also worked when software was really expensive. There was only one real CRM system, or there was only one ERP system, and you had it, and that was it. And Skype was what you used for phone calls. But today, like, they're just nearly pieces of functionality that can be spun up in hours and integrated into a piece of software. So I think the future, is about software that's very specific to a user's need. So whatever your business is, you need software that fits around how you work and how you're going to achieve that objective. So whether you're a software company and you're concentrating on sales or growing your SaaS metrics, or you're a water utility that's, your job is to make water better, you need to find a vendor that understands that this is how you work, the nuances of it, and then takes these elements or features of technology and applies it to contextual information. So I think that's very important, is buying 20 different pieces of software, managing that, trying to train people up so they can work remotely and supporting all that. It's just not going to work, or building custom stuff. You need to try and get a single software vendor that addresses your very specific vertical and has these tools that enables that effective work and reaching your objectives.
Interesting. So what is the story behind Klir? Can you be a little more, go into it a little bit more and tell us what the journey's been like? You've been at it for 5 years now, you say?
Yeah, well, we have 2 companies. So I founded 2 companies. This is my second company, Klir. So I founded a consulting company before. But like, our story is sort of a tale as old as time. And it's like many of the companies that feature in your show. We had an idea. We wanted to change the world, and we sort of threw caution to the wind. I think for us, so we started off in 2014, and we built a consulting company, and a huge team behind that, to basically advise different environmental agencies on how to implement software. And in 2018, we started Klir. And so we built that company, we basically sold it off, and we founded Klir in 2018. So, I think what's been useful for us, or what's been helpful in our journey, is that we really had a singular purpose, and the companies or the manifestations have been tactics to achieve that. And our singular purpose is just to make water better. But that's when we got into, myself and my co-founder Elaine, we got into the industry and we're like, this is just so antiquated how they're managing it, and the tools and technologies they have to use is just so backwards, and it's not something that we can take lightly. Water is pretty critical. So we had this singular vision to make water better, and we did that through consultancy, and now we're successfully doing it through software. And there's been ups and downs, like I suppose like any company. You have great successes, like we were in the Winter 20 cohort of YC, and I think that was important for us to make water more mainstream. It's been a very niche industry for a long time. Mm-hmm. And to try and get that message out there. It doesn't really matter where you're from. Water is managed very similarly, and it's a huge market opportunity that we all need to be considering, as the future or future opportunity. So like, I think it's been a challenging journey, but there's been a lot of successes along the way. And I think where we gain most of our sort of the wind is in our sails is because we've been so objective driven and saying, listen, we're just here to help you do your job, make water better. We've done a lot of that work up front, which means that when it comes to like selling the software now and seeing the traction that we're seeing now, it's made it a little bit easier. So I would say it's getting a little bit easier, but I don't want to jinx it.
It never gets 100% easy, right?
No, sure, that'd be boring.
Yeah.
If it was easy, it'd be boring.
And just out of curiosity, would the needs of just say my local provider in San Francisco, would they be the same as someone in a third world country? Or I would think they'd be different, but you know better than me.
Yeah, no, like, I suppose it comes down to like as I say, you're in different stages of your journey, so like a local utility or a local municipality, it's even very nuanced across the US. Maybe you have a local issue with PFAS or contaminated groundwater. Maybe you have a problem with economic development in your region. Or maybe you're highly remote and there's a challenge getting expertise, but the general premise is pretty much the same. It's, I either deliver drinking water or I remove wastewater, and I make sure it's safe. I return it back to the environment or to the people I serve in as safe as possible. And I want to do that as effectively and with cost management as possible. Um, so like it's like a maturity, it's like a life cycle. At an early stage, if you're in a developing nation, it's very early stage. You're still manually, carrying water to villages or whatever it may be. But like the similar premises that you have to have exclusion zones where you don't want to contaminate your water.
Mm-hmm.
Even in the most developed nations where we're still getting that wrong. We're putting high abstraction industries or highly polluting industries beside where we're getting water. So the problems just get more complex. I suppose it's like children and startups. The problems don't go away; they just get more and more bigger problems, and as it progresses.
That's interesting. So you said that Klir is a remote company. It started out as a remote company. So when you started the company, was that a strategic decision that you made, and how did you incorporate that?
Yeah, so like I think because we started off, we had experience in consulting. You do a lot of work on site, so you're away from the hive. So you have to have an awareness that you have to maintain culture and your objectivity while going into what is in essence someone else's house with their own culture, their own approach, and their own ways of working. There so many different aspects, but you still have to maintain your core sense of being as a company. So you have that as a baseline, and I think for us, that was a great experience to bring into saying that we're 100% remote work, because it's a very confident thing that you need to do. And it's been critical since day one, because it represents our priority and our vision and our mission rather than arbitrary decisions. I think too often in companies or in businesses, you will dwell over these decisions of like, what does the office look like? Where should we get our office, and how do we incorporate all these lovely fancy things to work in a centralized location, when really that doesn't matter. Like, that's their arbitrary decisions. We always try to say, like, we listen, we're not perfect. We've made mistakes. We tried to have like a small office where we come back, maybe one day a week. Didn't really work. But we always are trying and always iterating. So we're now, as at 100% remote, we don't have a commercial footprint. But what we're trying to do now is what we call, coming back to the well. So once a quarter, that we all basically come together physically, because we can't have a remote work this pendulum or binary where it's like one or the other, either 100% remote or 100% of the office. That doesn't work. And so we found that yes, remote work is useful. It allows people to operate in a framework that works for them. So we say, here is the objectives, what we're trying to achieve this quarter, the key results that measure that, and however you work most effectively, we're going to let you do that and trust the process. So it doesn't really make sense for people commuting 2 hours a day or force. It doesn't make sense, because you're forcing this unnecessary complexity on in an area that's complex enough. But remote was critical for us. So like I'm obviously Irish by accent, and so we were relocated to Canada to expand into the North American market. So we have a team in Spain, in Ireland, in the US, and Canada. So it had to be remote. There was no way. And it's just, I think you have to set up those processes. You have to have that framework. You have to have the technology, and then you have to get people back together. I think you cannot just be exclusively one or the other.
And just out of curiosity, since you have teams all over the world, why did you choose Toronto for yourself?
Yeah, so it's more about, I suppose, and many YC companies talk about the simplicity or just, breaking down the barriers. And for Toronto, it was a lot about that. So we wanted to, set up in the US straight off the bat, because that's our primary market. But, it's the complexity of getting set up. So, we're a couple of Irish people trying to get into the US. We started the process concurrently in, I think, January 2018. By the end of January, we were incorporated with visas and up and running in Canada. Like, that process took, it's sort of still rumbling on. Like, I'm not even messing. So, like, I don't want to turn into a highly political discussion, but the barriers, we looked at the path of least resistance and said, like, what is the easiest way for us to scale and grow this? But US is very important in our longer term growth plans. I'm really excited, and I'd say nearly bullish about like how Nevada is going to do. I think it's a real important state to watch, particularly as remote work becomes more important. Low tax rates, good weather, close to the valley, really good work-life balance. Those states that you're going to look at where it has that, I think you need to, they're definitely the ones to watch.
Yes. So the current situation, we touched on the pandemic a little bit. It sounds like you were already set up, but did that cause any roadblocks or challenges that you didn't expect?
I think I think everyone was caught off guard. I think straight off, you have to accept that you're moving to a point, particularly within your team, saying, I actually don't know what's going to happen next month, but this is what we're going to do, and this is the direction we're going to go. And I think it's there's a little bit of uneasiness with that. I think, people speak with, and leaders particularly speak with such confidence of, this is an almost certainty and this is what's going to happen. But I think, the more, as the workforce evolves, I think, people are much more mature and understand that there are no certainties, and highly mobile, people are highly mobile. So I think, that sort of straight up saying, I don't know what's going to happen next month, but this is the way we're going to do it, I think was helped us. But still, it was by no means perfect. I think in the water industry, it was very, like, there's a way of working there that's been there for decades. And, the bottom line is they were dealing with antiquated IT systems. In the industry, you either have to buy a piece of software from oil and gas, or, a similar enough vertical, or an environmental health and safety system, and you to try and customize it and try and get it to work. So it's always putting a square peg in a round hole. And I think it really solidified that challenge. That, when they, and that's if they even had an IT system, a lot of the time they just had access databases and really fancy Excels. And, just one day they realize they're sitting at home and there's really important regulatory jobs to be done, and they can't get access to the office. And they're like, this is just crazy. So I think, the major roadblocks was a realization that, the way the IT that was there just wasn't there to support. And I think the painting everything with the same brush, traditionally in water, it's been, we have to be so cyber secure. We can't let any vulnerabilities in our net. But like, there are, again, it's like anything, there's nuances of that. Obviously, the control systems for your water need to be, super secure. You don't want that to be cyber attacked. But, a system that stores publicly available documents that has no sensitive information whatsoever, that doesn't need to have the same level of on-premise that the hardware does. So I think that realization of the nuance of software, and morale has been an issue as well. Like, I think people are adapting to this new way of working, and the challenges that come with it home. So there are roadblocks, and I think we're all working through it. But I'm very surprised. We're 3 months into this, and people are adapting really well. Productivity is really high, and the world is still moving on, and jobs are still getting done.
Mm-hmm. Yes. So finally, there's companies like Gaper that help develop, build, and scale products, especially for startups like yourself. How important do you think that'll be going forward in this new way of doing work?
Listen, it's only going to get more critical, in my opinion. I think, again, it's sort of similar to the software space, in that there was only ever one model, which was like, let's outsource this to a high-price consultancy and be it in India or the Philippines or Eastern Europe or something like that. You know, and I think now it's become more nuanced, and that like the solution, you know, isn't always just like, let's just outsource this massively. You know, I think you need companies like Gaper that, you know, provide that level of certainty and accountability, you know, to get the necessary skills and talents that you need right off the cuff. And you know, to my point earlier, in that like you need to concentrate on things that make your business grow, and you know, spending time when someone is evidently doing this better and someone has this process down, you know, they're only going to become more and more important. And it is a congested, you know, like all market, like even like ourselves, our own market, you know, it is getting more and more difficult to separate out from the noise. But I think the pandemic will also maybe reset that a little bit. You know, I think there's going to be, you know, the really good companies are going to come to the top. And you know, reputation is going to be critical during this process.
Okay, well, David, I want to thank you for your time today. This has been very informative, and I chose the proper background for this. Obviously, that's beautiful, clear water.
Yeah.
And I wish you luck and have a great day.
You too. Thank you very much. Have a great day.